welcome to part 2 of the video. Sorry about that. I was trying to move everything over, I accidentally clicked too many buttons and the phone shut off, so cutting off the video. But we're here now. Let's pour ourselves a glass of juice and have our breakfast. Normally orange juice would be the thing, but my brother prefers something interesting. Wait, let me just... Okay. I wasn't worried it spoiled. It expires in November, but my brother tends to pre-make his cocktails. Anyway. Ooh, that is lovely. Mango nectar, it's called. Made with Alfonso. Anyway, so here is our sandwich. You might be wondering what our last ingredient is. What is that secret sauce? It is an actual sauce. It's Cholula hot sauce. This was actually inspired by Harley Quinn's breakfast sandwich in Birds of Prey. Not too much, or not too much, Sam. I want to taste the cheese. Birds of Prey is a really good movie. Fantastic cast. Obviously, you have Margot Robbie. You have, not Kate Winslet. Is it something Weintraub? Ramona Flowers, I believe, or Little Miss Sunshine or something, as Huntress. Really good role. You have Black Canary, you have Renee Montoya. Ewan McGregor is a fantastic Black Mask. Their take on Victor Zsasz is actually really good. Anyway. This isn't about my love of DC, this is about a real-life tragedy that happened to me. So let's dig in, and I'll relay to you my tale. Ooh, that's hot on the bottom, hot on. Ooh, that's a good crust on that egg, too. I like a crispy egg. I'll be honest with you. The American cheese, the white bread, the Buddig crispy beef, or, the Buddig sandwich meat made extra crispy with just a couple of cheap scrambled eggs, or fast scrambled eggs. Like, this is a cheap, delicious sandwich. But anyway, let's crack in. The week of March 17th, 2021. The stock exchange was in chaos as a bunch of idiots had just to spite someone, purposely driven up the stock price of GameStop. COVID's still a thing. The Ever Given had in the Suez. And my mom and I were both working at the same hotel. I got my mom a job there after she was let go from her school position. So my mom got fired. Well, she got let go from her programming job back in 2014. She had tried to apply for disability because she had severe fibromyalgia in addition to several other maladies. Her lawyer abandoned her midway through that process, and so she had to give up on that for the time being because she still had a daughter in high school at the time. And so she took a job with a local elementary school as a para-teaching aide. She specifically helped the kids who were, the special needs kids. I won't say she was really good at her job. She did actually... she was a mom. I'll say that. I won't say anything else for fear of her getting, sued or something. And through all this time, she's like going through stuff and constantly like complaining about how bad she feels and stuff. And at this point in my life, I am not in the best headspace. And so I assume the worst of my mom. I think she's a hypochondriac. I think, you're playing it up. You're not actually that sick. You just want attention because your sister is always asking for attention. Because I'm not going to go into that. You know, stuff. Like the kind of shit that you think of as a that you would never say out loud. Like when she would fall on the floor, and she fell on the floor a couple of times, and like had to, and called the ambulance to come pick her up. And I would beg her, like, Mom, no, you have to get up on your own. And I would try to help her up. I'm not very strong physically, and like, Mom, we can't afford the hospital bill. Come on. But I was also living with her at the time and footing a lot of the bills. I was paying $650 to live in her basement. Actually, it wasn't even that. It was $600 a month, except she had it as $600 every paycheck, or $300 every paycheck. So when I'd have 3 paychecks in a month, she would be like, "Oh well, you're still gonna give me your 300 out of that," and I'd be like, "No," and she'd be like, "Yes," which getting whipped by your own mother. Um. Anyway. So there was a time where my mom was like jobless with her son supporting her, and but she finally was like, you know what, we need more income. I'm gonna get on. I'm gonna come work at the hotel. So she came on to work as my night audit alternate, and also also front desk, general front desk, and she was pretty good at the job. She had experience with that stuff before. She's also very charismatic and charming, despite being a programmer. She's also really good with executive functioning, despite the fact that she never actually tried to apply for a management position within her company because she said it'd be too much stress. That mango juice is really good. Fried eggs with excuse me. Fried eggs with hot sauce and American cheese is just a good combo. Hot darn. Gosh dang. And I gotta get to the meat of the story. One time in 2020, or when in March 2021, we were both staying at the hotel because we lived 40 minutes out of town at that point. And excuse me. Oh Lord, I hope I'm not allergic to anything. And my excuse me. And because we're both on night audit, just at different times or different days. So we're both staying at a hotel because of a blizzard, and we live 40 minutes out of town. Excuse me. So we got to stay in town. Oh, I might be allergic to the. I hope I'm not allergic to mangoes. Uh-oh. I think it's just citrus makes me phlegmy. Anyway, I'm staying a few doors down from her. We're both in handicapped rooms, which I know. But my mom needed the walk-in shower, and that was literally all they had left for me. I didn't even get the walk-in shower. I got a shower seat that I can't use because I'm too fat. And in the middle of the day when I'm supposed to be sleeping, my manager calls me and says, Royce, your mom called me. She's having trouble. And I said, okay, I'll go down to her room. And I'm just like, ugh. And so I go to her room. She's like having what I assume to be, what at that point I was assuming was just her having this like weird, like pitching a fit or a tantrum. Where she's like, Royce, I can't get up off the floor. Like, yeah, sure, Mom, you can't get up off the floor. Royce, you gotta call the ambulance. I'm like, Mom. And like, we try to help her up. We can't get her up. Finally, we were like, okay, we'll call the ambulance. They're like, okay, we should take her down to the hospital just to see if she's okay. And I'm like, fine. Because I'm so tired. I don't want to deal with it at this point. I just think that my mom is throwing a hissy fit or something and, trying to get attention. Because I think that she's a hypochondriac or Munchausen's, whatever you call it. And so I go back to bed. Then, a couple hours later, I'm woken up with my grandma calling me on the phone saying, Royce Miller, why didn't you tell me your mother was in the hospital with congenital heart failure? And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm just like, no. It turns out I wasn't just wrong. I was dead wrong about everything. Mom had been experiencing congestive heart failure, or whatever it's called, and had been experiencing it for a year at that point. And that's like, she literally couldn't get enough oxygen in her blood to get herself up off the floor. And I was just, and like, she's not fatter than me, first off. Before any of you say, like, oh, your mother's, even at her worst, she's still 200 pounds lighter than me. This was, honestly, this is probably depression. Well, no, I don't want to say, like, oh, depression weekend, but no. So, I go to the hospital that day, or the next morning, because, like, I have work that night. I have to try to get back to sleep. And I know that sounds cruel, but, like, how else the heck are we supposed to pay for the effing bills? Like, my brain at that point was just like, this is too much. I shut down. And so finally I do go the next morning, and like, you have to also remember that the hospital is at this point in lockdown because of COVID. But, so I do my job and then the next morning, I go and I go to the hospital, and they let me in after having me fill out a bunch of paperwork. I will admit I did kind of lie to them because they asked me if I had any diarrhea, and I said no, even though at that point I was experiencing some diarrhea symptom, but it wasn't because of COVID, it was because of, I don't know. Maybe I either I have trouble processing fats, or, which, or I have a dairy allergy. I'm not sure which. And I go up to my mom's room and I see her intubated, and I just, every mean thing I've said and thought about her over my entire life played through my head, and I just felt like miserable because, I was so guilty. This was my fault. I was so dismissive of her. And it's fun. This is in no way justice, but it is ironic that I always thought she was dismissive of my, like, clear mental illnesses as a kid, ADHD or depression, etc. And then I was actually dismissive of life-threatening illnesses in her, that could have killed her. I was distraught. And, like, I hate making it about me, because this is not about me. This is about my mom and how she almost died. But I can only give my perspective on that. maybe one day I'll convince my mom to sit, maybe, not on camera, but next to camera, and tell us her side of the story. And the doctors said, like, hey, can you stay here for a while? We need to talk to you about something. And I'm like, okay. So they get me, my brother, and my sister all together in a conference call. My brother on the phone from Iowa, my sister on the phone from Alaska, and me sitting in the conference room with them. And they basically tell us that our mom's gonna die. They say, like, it's recovery, or the recovery period at this point, pretty low, or, pretty low chances. But we are still going to try it. We're still trying to find a path to recovery until such time as it becomes necessary for us to find a path to ease her suffering, which would be hospice care. Mom has a do not resuscitate thing, so, if she dies, she dies. No, there's no bringing her back if she flatlines. Which allegedly doctors do ignore that because, their job is to save you. The Hippocratic Oath. But I was just sitting there, like, kind of just... Because you have to remember, at this point, I'd been up since 7 p.m. last night, and I get barely any sleep. And, like, when I finally get back to Mom's room after the conference, I'm like, I hear my sister... Oh, no, my sister ducked out of the call because she says, look, I've got to pack. And then so they call my grandma instead. Mom's mom. Not the grandma my brother's was living with. And so we're all discussing all this stuff, and then, because Michaela's immediately like, I gotta get home. I gotta see my mom. And I go back to the room. Mom is still groggy, and I'm just looking at her, and I say, Michaela's coming down. And she immediately, recognition lights up in her eyes. And she's like, and I can see the look in her eyes like, fuck me, what's happening? But finally she just pats me and gestures for me to go home. And so I drive home. I'm tired. I am sad. I'm guilty. Over the next few weeks, a lot of stuff happened. I had to set up a GoFundMe for my mom's hospital bills. Thankfully, the head housekeeper of the hotel, Anne, at the time, was a very nice person, helped us a lot with that. And, the mom finally got on disability, and the hospital basically said, like, well, you're on disability now, we can't really charge you or whatever. Because it took her almost dying for Uncle Sam to be like, okay, you don't need to work anymore. And, Michaela came down, Joe came down. Everyone was pulling for her. And Mom, for her part, baffled the doctors by recovering so fast. They were like, what is this? My mom, and she is the most stubborn woman on the planet. Here's how stubborn she is. She's pro-abortion. She's pro-gay marriage. She's very progressive on most things. But she still votes Republican because she's like, oh, well, I was raised to vote Republican, so I vote Republican, kind of thing. She basically socked the Grim Reaper right in the jaw and said no. And like everyone was happy about that. But during that time, I was staying at home alone. It was just me and the cats, Jasmine and Mulan, and those two were responsible for me not falling into a pit of despair. Um, and of course, during that time, I had to feed myself. Now, normally, I would just make myself Totino's pizzas, which I actually do have some in the freezer right now, because it's a really cheap, easy meal. But I needed something more. I needed more protein or something. I don't know. So I bought a dozen eggs. I bought a loaf of bread. I got some Cholula hot sauce, some American cheese, and some butted sandwich meat, and made these because I was thinking about birds of prey at the time for some reason. That's a good sandwich. Of course, I didn't have it with mango juice. The fancy juices are more my brother's thing. I had it with Diet Pepsi, Walmart brand purified water. Because we lived out in the country and I didn't trust the well water. Since her hospital bills were covered by basically being too poor to pay them, we ended up spending the money from the we ended up spending the money from the from the GoFundMe on, which I hope this isn't like, I don't know. Well, we did spend it on some hospital bills. But we also hired some cleaners to come clean up the house so Mom could get her oxygen tank in. And we got this born again Barry idiot who just kept talking about Jesus. And he harassed my poor grandma for like a half hour trying to get more money out of her. I don't know, man. Mom finally came home. The cats had to move to Des Moines because Mom was coming home with an oxygen tank. And she was worried the cats chew on them. Part of me is worried that move was too hard on the cats because they died 2 years later. but they were 18. Um, well, 3 years later, technically, I guess. I don't know. And then Mom has improved so much. She's off oxygen. She's lost a ton of weight. She is in better shape than I am. And part of it is just like actually getting treated for her issues. Also the free medical care helps. She actually gets the Ozempic, which, I kind of need. But that's $500 a needle. I don't have that kind of money. Ugh. Yeah, and I promised myself that I would never argue with my mom. I would never, try to make her feel bad ever again. We still disagree on politics, but I always tell her I love her. I always make sure that she knows that I care. I don't know. Anyway, this is Royce Miller. I'm tired. You all good on that. I'm outie.